Well, hello everybody. Welcome to our first episode of Ask a CMA. So before we get to this person right here, let's squeeze her head real quick. If I can pick the nose. Before we get into this person right over here, I'm going to tell you all a little bit about this new position. So, for a while now, I've known that the position of BFI was no longer going to be around. And it was, not going to lie, it's been a little stressful, wondering what was going to happen. But I have a new position, which is CMA, which stands for Core Missions Associate. So it's a lot of the same responsibilities as a BFI, working a lot with the kids. But it's also been tailored to fit a Core's needs. So one big thing I know that I'll be working on is kind of bridging a gap between our shelter programs and our Core programs. So for those of you who've been asking what is a CMA, what does CMA stand for, what does a CMA do, that's kind of a little bit of a rundown. Hopefully over the next couple weeks I can kind of talk to you more about that. But before we do get into anything else, I first need to say I am at my house, so you might hear my cat come in and out. It's okay. And now we're going to move on to our special guest. So, before I start asking her any questions, do y'all see a resemblance? I mean, she's got more hair than I do, and I've got more of a beard. But this is my mom. This is Dana Long. She is here on sort of a vacation. Of course, with everything going on, I told her before she came out we were not going to be doing anything, and we haven't. We've just been at the house, just catching up. But yeah, guys, this is my mother. Hi, Mom. Say hi.
Hi, guys.
So, I figured, since my mom was going to come down and stay with me for a week, the price of her being able to stay in the house is she has to cook and then she has to do a video. Just kind of joking, but not really. But kind of, but not really. Yeah, so this week we've ate a lot. We've ate pizza and salmon patties and tacos and a bunch of good stuff. But my mom works for the Salvation Army in Kentucky, and there's the cat. You'll see her. But my mom works for the Salvation Army in Kentucky at the Danville Corps, which is my home corps. That is the place where I grew up. And I figured while she's here, we'll kind of talk to her a little bit about her job, what she does, and then we'll ask her what it was like growing or having me as a child. So, Mom, what is your position at the Salvation Army?
I am the office manager / kettle coordinator.
Office manager / kettle coordinator.
Yes.
Okay. So, we have not had anybody on yet that has talked about kettles. So, that's something we're definitely going to talk about. But before we do that, let's talk about office manager. So, what do you do as the office manager?
Well, I'm the first person people see when they come in the door. I handle all of the mail, all of the deposits, all of the correspondence that goes in and out of the Corps. I handle it. I help the social worker do some things. When she's not there, I do food bags and just different things like that.
Yeah. So we've talked with Liz. Who's our Corps assistant, our food pantry director, our YPSM, a lot of other things. And our food pantry here runs a little bit different, or a lot different actually, than a lot of the other food pantries. So you work in something that I'll consider more a typical food pantry. Mm-hmm. So here, the way it works is we're only open 2 days out of the month. And right now we have people, it's a drive-in best way to put it. And people come and they stay in their car, and we give them a full bag of food, and we serve anywhere from, we're averaging about $1,500 to $1,600 a month, something like that. So why don't you tell us just a little bit about how the food pantry runs in Danville? So if I come in off the street right now, how would I get food?
The way that it works right now is we can help you one time in a month's period in 30 days with food, as long as you have a picture ID. And you come in, you don't have to have an appointment. Normally you would, but you just come in between certain hours with a picture ID and we can give you food.
Okay, so it's not like a set day out of the month or anything like that that the food pantry is open. Your all's food pantry is open every day that the
We're open
office.
5 days a week, Monday through Friday.
Okay. So along with being the office manager, where you're pretty much the main point of contact, I guess is the best way to put it. Anybody who comes in talks to you first and everything. You're also the kettle coordinator.
Yes.
Okay. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what kettles are? Well, let's just start there. What are kettles? Whenever we say that, what are we talking about?
Kettles are, it's talking about the Red Kettle campaign, and it is one of the primary ways that the Salvation Army raises money for programs. Typically, in most Salvation Army locations, bell ringers are paid. However, in Danville, we are a fully volunteer, except for me, we are a fully volunteer kettle campaign.
Yeah, so that's really rare
Yes.
to have a corps that's 100% volunteer kettles.
Yes.
So for those of you, whenever you hear kettles, whenever you're around Christmas time, you go to Walmart or you go to something like that, and you see the red bucket and the guy shaking the bell, that's what we're talking about with kettles. All that money that you donate, that people donate, goes back, and it goes back into the Salvation Army, and it helps our programs. How long have you been the kettle coordinator?
I've been working at the Salvation Army for 16 years, and I've been the kettle coordinator for probably 14 of those.
For 14 years.
Yes, 14 years.
Man. So, one thing I want to brag about my mom for a little bit. And that's something I didn't do, but don't worry, I'm going to get to it. Usually whenever I do these videos, I start off by doing, my experiences with people. You're my mom, so it's kind of hard to go on for how much you've done for me, but we will in just a second. But I do want to brag, like I said, about on you for a second. Most places who do kettles and have kettle coordinators, they do kettles through a thing called Red Kettle on the internet. And that's how they organize it. Why don't you tell us how you organize? So whenever you have somebody call the Salvation Army in Danville, it's 100% volunteer for people who want to ring the bell for kettles. So you have somebody who wants to volunteer. How do you get them set up? How do they contact you to getting actually to the place to ring a bell?
They call me, and I tell them they can ring for as little as an hour to take as much time as they want to. They can take a whole day and sponsor it, however they want to do it. And they call me, I set them up, and then we meet them there with the kettle, with the bells. The stand is already there, and it just goes from there. I am blessed to have several board members from our advisory board that helps to put bell ringers in contact with me so that I can get them scheduled. We average, I think we had a little over 2,000 volunteer hours, which was about 1,600 volunteers last Christmas.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So whenever they call you, and this is the point that I was bragging on my mom about. So every other corps, it kind of runs like that with volunteers. They call, or here we have a program that they can go online and just say they want to volunteer, and it automatically assigns them or something like that. But you, whenever they call you, you do not use Red Kettle coordinator.
No, everything is done by hand. I keep track of every volunteer that calls me. I track them. I put their name down on a piece of paper. I put their phone number, their contact information. I'm the only one that keeps the schedule, because you can't have too many people keeping the schedule or it's going to get all messed up.
Yeah, and you have, I always know it's Christmas time back home, which I'm not back home anymore. I'm here in Texas. But whenever I was back home, I always knew it was Christmas time because you would have this big whiteboard that comes out, and you start taping it off into a grid.
Yep.
And then you have volunteer names, and you have the kettle locations, and you have dates. And that's whenever you start putting people down.
Yes, I still have my whiteboard.
Yeah.
It's a huge whiteboard.
Yeah. So I think you're the only person I've talked to who's done, kettle coordinating. We don't do it here. We didn't do it in Richmond, a lot of other places. You're the only one who does everything by hand. Why do you choose to do it that way?
On a volunteer basis, I think it gives them a more personal experience to know that there's someone on the other side of the phone that is taking their information, and if they have questions, they just call me and ask me the question, and I can tell them. And I do get a lot of questions from people like, how does it work? Where do I get the bell? What am I supposed to do with the kettle? All that stuff. And I think it's just a more personal experience. And since we're the Salvation Army, we are about a personal experience.
Yeah. So let's go through your typical day whenever kettles are going on. So for us in Danville, for you all, I've got to stop saying us because unfortunately I'm no longer in Danville. I'm here in beautiful Corpus. Love you, Corpus. But Danville will always be my home. So when does kettles start? When do you put out the first kettle?
Generally, we put out the first kettle on Black Friday.
Black Friday.
That's when for a couple of years, we were able to ring 2 weeks before that, but unfortunately that changed last year.
Yeah.
And so we had to go back to just starting from Black Friday and going on.
Yeah. And how long does it go? How many months? Or when do you stop?
We stop on Christmas Eve. We don't ring Sundays, but we ring, so it's Monday through Saturday up until Christmas Eve. And on Christmas Eve, we ring up until we start earlier and we end at 2 on Christmas Eve.
Got you. So let's go through a typical day for you. Let's start off with this. How many kettles do you have in your location?
8. On most days we have 8. Sometimes on the weekends we'll have 9 or 10. But most of the time it's 8. So it's not a huge thing.
Yeah. Well, Danville's a small town, so
yes.
For us to have 10 locations is pretty good for being as small as it is.
Yes.
So let's start off with a typical work day for you. When does your day start?
My day starts about 8:30 in the morning. I'm very blessed to have someone that sets up all the kettles for me. That started about 3 years ago. I very rarely have to go out now and set up a kettle. Up until then I did. I set up kettles daily. Sometimes 2 and 3 times a day I would set up kettles. But now I go in, I make sure everything is set up, everything is ready so that the person that is setting up the kettle, all they have to do is walk in the door, grab the red kettle, grab the bells and a file folder, and then they can set up every kettle with one trip.
Nice. And then, so once the kettles are set up, throughout the day, is it mostly just checking and making sure every volunteer is where they're supposed to be and taking care of, like, if a volunteer doesn't show up?
We have some of that, but to be honest, we rarely have volunteers that don't show up.
Yeah.
If they schedule a time, they are primarily there. Or if they can't be there, they'll call me and say, I'm not going to be able to make it. So we're very, very blessed in that aspect.
Okay. Now, how does the day end? So I know the answer, but I want everybody else to know too. Do we leave the kettles out?
No.
Yeah, of course not, right?
Right.
If you leave a kettle out, it's going to be gone.
Yes.
So What happens at the end of the day in Danville?
We have my husband and I, Jesse's dad and I, will pick up Danville location, and then we have the court officer and one other person. They will pick up the other locations. We all meet back. And this starts at 8 o'clock. We go pick up all the kettles at 8 o'clock, and then we meet back, count the money, and then we're out of there by 9:15, 9:30.
Yeah. So I'm not going to reveal to you all where the location is. We count money for Danville or for Corpus, because it's not that I don't trust you all, but this is going to be public. Not everybody needs to know that information. But yeah, that is during Christmas time, probably since I was 10 years old, until I moved to Corpus, actually. I spent every night for Christmas season counting money, except for Sunday nights.
Yes.
Every night since I was 10 years old. And I got to tell y'all, it was some of the funnest times I've ever had in my life. It's hilarious. There's a video I have somewhere of my mom and my dad throwing honey buns, the little pastries you can get from Walmart or Little Debbie, you know those, throwing a honey bun at each other because it was just funny during counting money. Before we kind of move on, I just want to ask you a few more questions about kettle coordinating. So how stressful of a job is it doing the kettle coordinator?
It can be quite stressful, but just because I will just have so many phone calls in one day, or now that I do a lot of stuff online, I'll be answering so many emails in a day's time, that it gets very, very, very stressful in doing it. Now, there were a couple of years that I was also angel tree coordinator as well as kettle coordinator, and I had very good support doing that, including Jesse Lee and his dad and some good friends of ours. I don't know what it was just very, very stressful. And it can be very stressful. But to be honest, we did all volunteer for so long now that we have so many people that ring for me every year. And so they start calling me in September, October to book the time slot. Yeah. So it kind of books itself in a way.
Yeah. And just a quick shout out to a couple Corps officers, Zach and Shelley Bell,
yes,
Sarah Dan Nelson, Jason and Bethany Burns. I don't want to leave anybody out, Patrick Carey, Roger and Lindsay now, but just particularly Zach and Shelley and Jason and Bethany, just for whenever you were Angel Tree coordinator and kettle coordinator, that they were still being great officers and there to help you and everything. Yeah. Okay, so say hello to the cat and say goodbye to the cat. All right, so now I'm going to kind of do things in reverse. So like I said earlier, usually at the beginning of the videos I say a few things about the person that's sitting down talking with me. So I'm going to do that now. So my mom, Dana Long, I say nice things on camera. That way I don't have to say them again in person. So make sure you listen. This is going to be your Christmas gift and your birthday gift and your Mother's Day gift.
All right.
And whatever else it is. My mom was put on this earth to be a mother. She has a huge heart, and I don't want to say this and offend anybody, or for it to come off harsh. I don't mean it to be harsh, but I used to joke as a kid, and still to this day I still do. I used to say that my mom collects strays. And what I meant by that is my mom has this huge heart for just people she sees who need help. And growing up, my mom was a teacher's assistant before you start working at the Salvation Army. Mm-hmm. And I remember you'd always have kids come over to the house, and you're still in touch with a lot of those kids. Mm-hmm. and you consider them your kids, and that's kind of where I consider my kids. Hey guys, if you're watching, but you truly were put on this earth to be a mother. Like there's not really much more I can add to that. Like you have such a huge heart and such a huge love, and you just truly want to help people. So just a little bit about my mom's character before I ask her a couple other questions. My mom, we used to say to each other, what would you do with $1 million? Right? My answer is always I would, pay off any bills. I would get a nice little house somewhere, get a car. But that's what I would. My mom always said, well, I would pay off my bills, but I just want to have enough money that can help anybody that needs it anytime I can.
Yeah.
And that's always been your answer. And I think that just kind of shows your heart. So, now we're going to move on to the new topics.
Okay.
So, this is my mom. And for you, I don't think anybody has a better perspective of me than probably my mom does. So, Mom, what was I like as a kid?
Let's see. You had the world's greatest imagination. As a young child, especially, you just always had a great imagination. You always had the world's greatest imagination, and your dad and I always said that you were put on this earth to make us laugh. Most everyone knows that Jesse Lee has a brother, Michael, that is autistic, and that has not always been an easy thing to do. Michael, along with being autistic, is extremely hyperactive, and he doesn't sleep. But Jesse Lee has always had the ability to make me laugh, and which is something that you have to do, is you have to laugh.
Yeah. All right. So that's what I was like as a kid. How about teenage years? What was I like as a teenager?
Oh, Lord.
Moody.
Moody, very moody. Sometimes didn't always appreciate the fact that we always had a house full of people because we always had his cousins over. But Jesse Lee has talked about one of his friends before, and his friend Jerry was always over all the time. But that being said, you never knew what they were going to do because they loved firecrackers and fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still do.
Still do.
Yeah.
Yes.
So just a little bit about Jerry. Jerry, I hope you watch this. I don't mean to reveal our secrets, but I think the statute of limitations is passed. But I remember we would take like old toys of mine and we would burn them or try to blow them up. We might have did that to a couple of my cousin's toys if he got on our nerves.
Yes.
So, did you ever think that I would be a youth pastor?
No, I did not. I remember you got your first job at camp being property.
Yeah.
Working on the property, and then when the DYS at that time told me that you were working with the kids, I'm like, you don't want him working with kids. And she said, but if he can't work with kids, what's he doing at camp? I'm like, well, okay. It turned out that it was the best decision he ever made was to work at camp. He worked at Camp Paradise Valley for how many summers?
I don't even remember.
A lot of summers, but it was the best decision that he ever made was to go to work at Camp Paradise Valley.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what did you think I would end up doing? So you didn't see me being a youth pastor.
I didn't see you being a youth pastor. I saw you being a musician because you're so talented at it. But I always told you that you would make a good state trooper because you're very good at reading people and you always have been very good at reading people, and or going into something along the psychology line, which is something that you're that you are doing now, just because you are very, very good at reading people and being able to be empathetic without buying into the lies.
Yeah. Appreciate it. So, a couple more questions, and this will kind of lead us to the end of the video. Going back to working at the Salvation Army, what is your favorite part of your job?
My favorite part of my job is just getting to meet all the people, and I love being able to work with my pastors, but I also work with my sister, and I work with my niece. I work with just a great group of people, but to be able to work at my church is a really good, I just really enjoy it a lot.
Yeah. Hi, Aunt Kelly. Hey, Tessa, my favorite cousin. Sorry to any other cousins to see this, but it is what it is. If you don't like it, you should have done something to change it.
That's my son.
Michelle's going to be very mad at me. Okay. Least favorite part of your job?
Least favorite part of my job would be, unfortunately, not always seeing the good side of people.
Yeah.
And my job has made me have to be more aware of that. Not having to buy in, or not wanting to buy into all the stories or whatever. Yeah. You have to be a good reader of people.
Yeah.
To be able in the social service, because even though I'm not a social worker, I do still come in contact with everyone first.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to do that. But that probably is.
Yeah, that would definitely be a challenge for you, because you do have such a huge heart, and you just want to help out every single person that comes in.
Especially elderly. Yeah. If it's elderly, I would give them the whole house.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just would.
Yeah. All right. So these might be a little bit harder for you. But I always end by asking people's, what's your favorite part of your job, your least favorite part of the job. Since we talked about your work at the Salvation Army, we talked about your favorite and least part, and we talked about you being a mother. All right. So what has been the best part about having me as a son?
Your ability to make me laugh.
Yes.
And it's the honest truth. Jesse Lee and I have always had a very good relationship. We always do a lot of our talking in the car. Yeah. We can go for hour-long car rides and be fine.
Yeah, we actually, sorry to interrupt you, but we actually just got back from a trip to Victoria, Texas, which is about a 2-hour trip. And, I think we talked the whole way there, the whole way back. So,
yeah, it doesn't seem like it at all.
Yeah, you're right.
But what was the question? What's my favorite part about being your mom?
Yeah.
Your ability to make me laugh, and just being able to see you grow into yourself. Watching you move to Texas was not easy, but your dad, it was very hard on your dad for you to move down here. It was not hard on me, because I knew it's where you needed to be.
Yeah.
And I always had I knew you were moving before you told me you were moving.
Yeah.
And I knew that God was putting you where you needed to be.
Yeah, and I do think He has. And, I've been blessed down here in Texas, guys, and for a lot of you that are going to watch, a lot of you all are a big part of that, so thank you very much. All right, so what has been, I won't say your least favorite part of having me as a son, but what's been some of the hardest struggles?
The hardest struggles? Not being able to fix it when you're hurting, which I think that's with any parent, any good parent, not being able to fix it. Just watching you go through struggles and and just learning to stay out of it. Like, you are very private, and I know if you want me to know something, you'll tell me. And so that was something that I learned early on, was to not question you. You'll tell me when you're ready.
Yeah.
And that's not always an easy thing to do when you're a mom and I know you're hurting, but I know you, and I know that if you want me to know, you'll tell me.
Yeah. Yeah. And guys, I hope you all appreciate this video series I'm doing with you, because as she said, I am a very private person. I do like to keep a lot of my struggles, a lot of, just things I may be dealing with in life, I like to keep to myself. And I don't really like to reveal too much about myself to people. But yeah, so I hope y'all do appreciate whenever we talk, or if you are one of the people who I've sat down and talked with, Liz, Amber, Kyle, consider yourselves blessed or cursed that I decided to talk to y'all about maybe some things that are bothering me. Yeah, so Mom, thank you for doing this with me. Thank you for coming down. Guys, I want y'all to know something. Yes, right now COVID is really bad here in Corpus. I want y'all to know that, but we haven't been irresponsible.
Not at all.
We have pretty much been in the house. If we went out anywhere, we always had our mask on. We always sanitized our hands. We never touched our face, anything like that. We always make sure we sanitized our hands. So even though, yes, my mom has come down to Corpus, we had been very responsible about it. So just keep that in mind. And with saying that, guys, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for watching. Please remember, if we want things to go back to normal, the best thing we can do is follow guidelines, keep our masks on, make sure we're staying sanitized, social distance, all the words that I'm sure we're getting tired of hearing. But that's the best thing we can do if we want things to go back to normal. Guys, as always, love you all. Thank you for joining. I hope you all are getting something out of this video series. Please remember to send questions. And remember, I am no longer a BFI. I am a CMA. So if you call me a BFI, nothing's really going to happen. I'm not going to be mad. I don't care. But my technical term now is a CMA. So, guys, right now, I do not have a guest planned for next week. I am going to put out some feelers, though, and see if we can get somebody. But, as always, stay home, stay safe, stay clean. If you need to talk to somebody, reach out. Other than that, God bless.